So now we've got a device certificate installed, we're going to move on to software updates. So the first thing that we want to do is start looking at our dynamic updates. So our dynamic updates are content packages that are installed that update things like applications and threats, antivirus, wildfire, URL filtering. Depending on your licenses and subscriptions that you've purchased for the next-gen firewall that you're configuring will determine how many sort of content updates that you need to pull down. So typically, if you've got our CoreSec bundle, which includes your traditional advanced threat, URL filtering, wildfire, DNS security, you'd be configuring pretty much everything on the screen here. Don't be alarmed for the first time that you click on a device and under here for software and dynamic updates, if this screen is blank. Totally expected. It's because the cache is empty. So the first thing that we always want to do is click on check now. So check now will reach out to the update server, pull down all of the latest content packages and display it on the screen here. Don't be alarmed again if you don't see antivirus. So antivirus relies on applications and threats. So good tip here, install apps and threats first, then move on to installing antivirus. Pretty straightforward to download and install. We just click the download button. Once that package has been downloaded, that download changes to the install button. Just click that. It can be done live during production hours. It's a hitless update just to contents for signatures, so there's no reboot or anything like that required. But it is important to know that the actual PANW operating systems, they have a minimum applications and threats version. So always good to be on the latest apps and threats signatures. Highly recommended to configure a schedule. As you can sort of see here from the release dates, we do update these regularly. Typically, most environments you would sort of see at least a daily, if not a weekly check for apps and threats, and similarly for antivirus. Wildfire is a little bit different, actually. So Wildfire, we're releasing signatures in very short periods of time. So you can sort of see here we're talking minutes between these two different packages. We do have an option for real-time signature streaming. So that can actually be set to real-time for the latest security updates in real time. Typically, I see a lot of customers configure this, but somewhere between 5 to 15-minute intervals for Wildfire checks. So once we've got all of our content updates installed, we can sort of move on to the PANW system updates. So under device and software, again, don't be alarmed if this screen is empty. We just need to click that check now button. Now we've got some filters here. So one of the easy things to do is filter by preferred release. So preferred release is basically the latest and most advanced features that ensure system stability. So it's recommended by our TAC engineers and product management as to what we see as the most common, most stable release currently in market. And that sort of gives customers a bit of a guidance as to what should we download and install. You'll see the release type here. We've got base. So all of our updates are differential. So for example, if we were running 10.1, we can download 10.2 as the base package, but we don't actually need to install 10.2.0. We can download and install our recommended release of 10.2.13, hotfix 7. We download and install that, just to note that the base must be downloaded, ready to go first. Some notes on our preferred release guidance. This is a very good resource, as I mentioned, just to help provide some guidance, visibility into what other customers are running, in adoption rates, the change in the last 3 months, end of life dates, all of those sorts of things, release notes. This page will be linked in the resources that we attach to the blog post post this session. But do definitely check out that page. It does have a lot of guidance for not just PANW, but things like Global Protect, Prisma Browser, User ID agents, Terminal Service agents, basically any of the PANW related software that we've got some guidance around versioning and that sort of thing.
If I can just throw another shameless plug out there, we actually had a Spark User Summit specifically on PANOS release versioning. Looks like it was back in May of this year. There's a blog post out in the live community if anyone wants to check it out. I'll throw a link in the chat here as well, but we have talked about this before. There's a whole session on that as well, just so everyone's aware.
I've included that link as part of the reference material.
Oh, beautiful. Never mind. I won't bother then. Thank you.
No worries. High availability upgrade tips. So very common question that we get is, can I perform upgrades with no downtime? The answer is, it depends. Very network engineer answer, but it does really depend. So it is possible. Planning is the crucial element, and testing prior to actually performing hitless upgrades. So some of the tips that I can offer. So one of the things to start with is, if your firewalls are managed by Panorama, we need to ensure that the version of Panorama is equal to or greater than the version of the firewalls under management. Very important there. Verify your HA status, synchronization, and operation prior to performing your maintenance upgrades. So the way that I like to do that is just on the dashboard, you can look at the high availability widget. So just under the widgets there, we've got a HA widget. This will give you a nice overview just to make sure things like your HA1 ports, HA2 ports are up. All of your content updates that we talk about are in match. The config is synchronized, all those sorts of things, making sure that they're in order before you get started. The second thing would be is, when you deploy HA is only as good, whether it be active, passive, is whether that has been tested, whether you've done disaster testing, planning, all of that sort of thing. Is VLAN trunking configured correctly for your passive node? Is, route distribution, routing peers, all of those sorts of things configured appropriately. So when you do fail over, the actual underlying network reconverges and comes up as expected. So all of that needs to be tested beforehand. Once all of that is in order, I recommend downloading the software first. You may only have a couple of hours maintenance window to get a couple of firewalls installed, or maybe you've got a couple of HA pairs to upgrade, and you really do come up against time pretty quickly in these sorts of operations. So download and install the software on all of the peers, so both nodes across the environment. That's a completely safe operation to do during operational hours. Software's ready, saves you waiting for multi-gig worth of downloads across a couple of devices. Disable preemption. So very important there. So we want to be able to manually control when we're ready to fail over devices. We want to basically disable any sort of automated preemption in that sense. Start with the passive device for active passive deployments. For active deployments, start with the active secondary. So basically suspend them, take them out of operation, install the software, reboot them, let them come up, verify that everything is good, your config is there, and basically you're ready to perform another failover and repeat the process. Finally, just a side note, check the plugin versions. These can be a little bit of a hidden gotcha. A number of plugins are installed by default, so DLP, VM series plugins. Just make sure the versions on those definitely match pre and post upgrade. Some good resources. As I mentioned, the preferred release guidance, supported OS releases by model. So not every Palo Alto Networks Next Gen firewall supports every release. So if you've got maybe a Gen 2 device, like a 3200 or a 5200, they only support up to a certain release. Off the top of my head, I think it's about 10.2, maybe even 11.1 for the 5200s. But do check, if you're running an older generation hardware, what your latest available PANOS release is. Some FAQs around upgrading PANOS, good resource on the live community there. And as Charles mentioned, we do have a couple of Pancast episodes around things to do when you're upgrading the firewall. and that versioning episode around how we develop numbers, hotfix numbers, all of that sort of thing, if that's of interest, as well as the software end of life summary. A side note here is under the tech docs, when you click on review the upgrade and downgrade considerations, it'll give you a nice list of things to consider. Some of those I already mentioned in the previous slide. But this one here, upgrade your firewalls. So this will actually give you a step-by-step upgrade path. So if your firewall's running 10.1 and you want to get to 11.1, and you want to understand what hops are necessary to go ahead and complete that upgrade, simply clicking on this button here, that will give you the exact steps to go from 10.1, up to 11.1. So a really useful resource. So moving on to Strata logging service. So now we're sort of moving on that we've got a device, we've got configured, licensed, we want to start enabling some cloud services. So for those that may be familiar, Strata logging service was formerly Cortex Data Lake. So essentially what that is, it's Palo Alto Networks cloud logging service, where we can ingest system logs, traffic logs, any sort of log data from our next-gen firewalls, whether it's hardware, virtual, as well as our SASE environments, so Prisma Access, Prisma Browser, remote browser isolation logs, SD-WAN, all of those sorts of things. So anything NetSec, we can ingest into Strata logging service. So we ingest the logs, we store them, but we can also forward them to third-party services, external SIEMs, long-term data retention services, that sort of thing. We've got a number of integrations there, as well as your standard sort of HTTP forwarders, syslog forwarders, and so on. We also stream logs to other Palo Alto Networks cloud services. So things like enterprise DLP, device security, which Cindy mentioned, formerly known as IoT security. This leverages the log data that we send from our next-gen firewalls to the logging service. So some prerequisites to get this off the ground. So first, we will need a qualifying license. So if you've purchased Strata Cloud Manager Pro for your next-gen firewall, that includes a Strata logging service license with retention for up to 12 months of log data. Or you can individually license your environment for a standalone license. We do require Panos 9.1 or higher. I hope everyone on the call is running a version higher than 9.1. If not, this is a fantastic episode to get started, to start upgrading those firewalls. 9.1's been end of life for a significant number of years. Device certificate, we mentioned, make sure that's configured and fetched successfully. Connectivity outbound to the logging service. So obviously a cloud delivered security service, we do need internet connectivity into the service. We do need the instance. So as Cindy mentioned, the magic link that you would have received and the workflow that you go through to spin up that service, we do need that activated before you go ahead and start onboarding firewalls. Connectivity requirements, very much the same as the device certificate. With the exception here, we do have a second app ID. If you're running Palo Alto Networks next-gen firewalls, app ID, Palo Alto logging service, we do need to allow that. So for outbound connectivity. We do have region-specific FQDNs available. So obviously in highly regulated environments where data sovereignty could be of a concern, each instance region has their own FQDNs and region info. So if necessary, you can develop security policies and rules to make sure that the only outbound connections are to your applicable region. Again, I'll just sort of mention here TCP port 444. I see a lot of issues around next-gen firewalls not connecting to the logging service because that port is blocked, or some sort of decryption, or upstream proxy is doing some inspection on that. So how do we onboard a next-gen firewall? Pretty straightforward process. So we start on the device under setup and under the cloud login here. So we just click the cog icon, and essentially we want to either enable cloud logging or we can enable duplicate logging. So this is for particular special environments that have on-prem panorama managed log collection, but we also want to take a copy of those logs and send it to the Strata logging service. So we do have the option to send to both the cloud and on-prem. Typically, you'll just be doing one or the other. So in this instance, we'll just select enable cloud logging. Enhanced application logging is very important for anyone looking to utilize log data for any enhanced analytics. So I say IoT device security, enterprise DLP, Cortex XDR, and network traffic analytics for user behavioral, things like that. Definitely we need to have that enabled. Select the appropriate region and then click OK. So now that we've successfully configured the device and we're onboarded, what we actually need to do is tell the firewall to start sending logs to the logging service. So we need to do this in two separate instances. So for things like system logs, configuration logs, user ID, all those sorts of OS related logging, we need to go to device and log settings, and for each of these add in a log forwarding profile, which tells the system I'm going to send all of my system logs into the cloud logging service. And it's just a simple tick box. If necessary, you can apply log filters, so you can get quite granular if you wish to say only forward critical event severities or high or something like that. But in most cases, you would just simply filter all logs. So the second thing that we need to do is configure another log forwarding profile, which is found under objects and log forwarding here. And for most systems, this default predefined profile, we can just simply tick that and click clone, or you can create your own. But typically we just want to create another log forwarding profile here. And essentially what we want to do is have our forwarding methods set to, as you see here, Cortex Data Lake, and our enhanced application logs on this log forwarding profile. Again, if you wish, you can get quite granular in what kind of logs that you're sending to the logging service, but in most instances, you just want to send everything. That's going to give you the biggest visibility and feed the ML engines the most amount of rich data to perform the additional actions. So once we've got that log forwarding profile configured, we need to actually attach that to a security policy. So very much like if you go and configure an access control list, that's all very well and good, but until you apply it to an interface or a VLAN, it doesn't really do much. So very, very similar instance here. We create the profile. Now we want to attach it to a security policy so it starts actually taking some action. So under the actions, we want to log at session end by default. Log at session start's not recommended. It's there for troubleshooting purposes, but it does add additional overhead to management processes, and it also can pollute the logs because of the way that we do logging. So you might have seen in a log data before where you see the initial TCP connection, which then maybe is established as SSL, and then you decrypt that and you start opening up the session, and then you realize that, hey, it's actually Facebook traffic or Office 365 or something like that, and then the action morphs from there into it's an action of download data or upload data. So this logging at session end condenses all of those individual logs into one readable source. So best practice to just log at session end, and then we just want to select our log forwarding profile there. So how do we verify that the logging service connectivity is working as expected? So back under device and setup, we can check the cloud logging status. So if we just click show status there, we're going to see nice 3 green dots. That confirms that we've got the certificate. There's a certificate for device, which we mentioned, a certificate for the logging service. We've successfully attached ourselves to our own individual tenant. So coming back to that tenant service group that Cindy was talking about, that's all okay, and the device connectivity itself is okay. This is probably one of those things where if you're not getting the information that you need from the GUI and you want to understand perhaps one of those green dots is actually red, hop over to the CLI and use these commands for reference. So initially we'll just check that we're licensed for the logging service, it's enabled, whether or not we've got duplicate logging or enhanced application logging enabled. We're successfully retrieving the logging service certificate. We've checked the device certificate, make sure that's okay, as well as the SLS connections. So if we issue this command, debug log receiver log forwarding connections, we can actually see the underlying connection is active to our own SLS tenant. So making sure things like DNS, the registration, the SSL channels, again, that TCP channel on 444, making sure those are all success. If not, this is going to be pointing you in the right direction as to what you need to remediate to fix that issue. Some good resources, again, troubleshooting firewall connectivity, that's a really good one. Typically, in most cases, it is a port blocked or an app ID missing or something like that. Log forwarding profiles, if you need a little bit more information on configuring those, as well as a getting started guide for activating the service. Like Cindy mentioned, that workflow through the tenant service group and activating that, it can all be found there. TCP ports and the FQDN required if you need to configure third-party devices. And with that, I'll hand back to Cindy for a walkthrough of activating Strata Cloud Manager.
All good. Thanks so much, Darren. Hi, everyone. Topic for today, which is Strata Cloud Manager. Recognize that I'm here. Yeah. So if you've never heard of Strata Cloud Manager before, it is a cloud-based unified management solution for everything within the Palo Alto Network security platform. So you can think of it as Panorama, but there is a lot of development going on in Strata Cloud Manager to make it like a real platformized console for everything network security. So you hear that it can manage all our firewalls, including hardware and software, and cloud next generation firewall, as well as our SASE solution. So this includes Prisma Access and Prisma Messenger. The aim of it was to allow admins to gain complete visibility of the entire network because everything is under the one platform. And a direct benefit of this is that it allows, since everything is in one place, it's easier to keep configurations and policies consistent across. Strata Cloud Manager also helps you strengthen your security posture. The AI-powered component of this are the AI analyses that the console does. So it compares your existing configuration against best practices as well as compliance frameworks. And last but not least, you can also more easily predict, diagnose, and resolve your network health with network disruptions and also any degradation to the user experience. And all of this is empowered by the SCM Copilot. So since this is a very comprehensive platform, if you need help with finding or you want to quickly find an insight into a specific area, then you can ask the question to Copilot. So how do we actually go about activating and onboarding our firewalls? So similar to Strata logging service, there are a few prerequisites. To manage your firewalls is 10.2.3. Just a side note for VM series, we don't support legacy licensing, so the VM series must be licensed via Flex credits. And if you want more advanced automation features like bootstrapping and IP tag redistribution, then PANWS 11 is required as a minimum as well. Similar requirements to SLS down here are the valid device certificate, which we learned how to generate, as well as allowing these 4 ports for the different Palo Alto network services. In addition as well, I'll take you through how to do that and enabling advanced routing engine. So this can be done by default during the initial bootstrapping process when you first onboard the firewall. It will restart it though. So if you don't want this to happen, you can opt out of it. But later on, you'll have to manually configure the advanced routing engine yourself. Also, there are 2 tiers. I vaguely mentioned it in the beginning, and Darren mentioned it when talking about Strata log tiers for Strata Cloud Manager, the Essentials tier and the Pro tier. So Essentials is what I'll be walking you through in the next few slides on how to activate it in the hub. Otherwise, the Pro license will come through a magic link and you'll be prompted with the workflow as we saw before.
And Essentials is free.
Yes, it is free.
Alto Networks has free products.
And because it is free, we need to activate it. Activate it in the hub. So we first need to start by going to the right TSG or tenant. When you're on the hub, you'll be presented with all these different tiles. Find the one for Strata Cloud Manager. And if you've never activated it, and it'll bring you to a new tab to complete the workflow that I mentioned. It looks very similar to before with the magic links, so I won't be going through that again. But basically, once you've done the workflow, the Strata Cloud Manager instance initializing, once it's deployed, you can access the console. Then we need to go ahead and associate the firewall to the instance. So how we do that is by going to the system settings in device associations. Just click on it, and as long as the firewall is in the same CSP, it'll be here for selection. Just click on the ones that you need and click save. So that's the first part that we need to take care of. Secondly, we need to associate the products with the firewalls themselves. So things like Strata logging service, device security, there's no authorization codes. So this is how you would attach the service to the firewall through SEM. Still in the same device associations page, but this time we go to associate products. And these services which are enabled within the TSG, here, and you need to select the firewall. So there's 2 associations. One, the device with SEM, and then second, the product with a firewall in SEM. This is a little bit of a tangent, but for VM series, it is a little bit different when it the VM series to Strata Cloud Manager. So in the deployment profile for the software firewall that code, you'll see this little link that says finish setup. It'll bring you to the workflow again, make right CSP and tenant. And what you have to do is tick the deployment profile that your SCM tenant that you're deploying. So that's just the extra step that you need for VM series in particular. Now that we have associated our devices, we need to go ahead with onboarding. They're separate steps. So this step requires you to do a little bit of configuration. So in the firewall, we will head over to the device settings in setup and telemetry. Just make sure that all the boxes are checked and you are sending it to the same as the SCM has been initially. If the telemetry region is different from where you've deployed SCM, things will not work as you would expect. So make sure. And then still in the firewall, this time you'll head over to the management, go to panorama settings, which is a widget, and just click on cloud service instead of panorama. You had to do on the firewall side. Once that's done, we now have to head over to the Strata Cloud Manager console, still in system settings, but now in device management. We will click on, and initially the firewall where you've enabled telemetry and clicked, they will appear here. Select them, move to cloud management, and then they'll appear on the right-hand side. And as you can see, my onboarding status for these. Last bit for onboarding the firewall, we need to enable the configuration feature. So to do that, we go out of the system settings, head over to configuration, click on NGFW and Prisma Access. You'll be met with this welcome screen. Just click on proceed. It'll tell you a little bit about what this does. So you can manage your firewalls with Strata Cloud Manager, as we've been talking about. And if you go ahead, then this process to enable configuration will take 5 minutes. And once it's started, it can't be stopped. So just go ahead and enable the service. Once 5 minutes is up, you will be met with this screen, which means that you have successfully for management on Strata Cloud Manager. Added the configuration scope here. You can see the different folders. It's relatively similar to Panorama's concept hierarchy. That's not the purpose of today. It's not a Strata Cloud Manager demo, but just wanted to show you guys what it would look to go. Just to end, I wanted to talk about a few things that I've seen on the field that may catch some people when they're first trying to activate Strata Cloud Manager. Make sure you're visiting the right URL. So sometimes customers, they might say like, oh, I don't have the SCM tile. And the reason is just because they're not on the right URL. I'll show you what it looks like shortly. Furthermore, a common question we get asked is Strata Cloud Manager greenfield deployments in mind, but there has been a lot of interest for existing deployments as well. To answer the question of the firewall locally, what happens when I add them to SCM? So similar to Panorama, SCM cannot override the local config. The local config of the firewall always will take precedence, but there is a migration tool that is being developed by our product team to make this migration easier, and you'll be able to import your existing configuration to Strata Cloud Manager. But once it's in Strata Cloud Manager, it's ideal to continue configuring from SCM instead of locally. Otherwise, it may get confusing in terms of what's. Hopefully, that will answer the most common questions that we commonly get. Why you might not be able to see the Strata Cloud Manager tile. When you log into the hub, which is basically a specific view of the hub, just turn off this toggle and it'll take you to the right URL to see the SCM tiles as expected. And to end, these are all the resources, including a guide on activating SCM Essentials, SCM Pro, if you have the license, and of how to onboard the firewalls in case you need it. But that ends the materials that we've had today. Thank you very much for your attention.
I do want to jump in quick and let people know, don't go leaving yet. This is just the first half of our event. Cindy and Darren have gone now. We'll be going over to Angelo in just a few moments. But before we do that, I do want to say, Cindy, Darren, thank you very much for everything today. It's been fantastic material. We had a lot of chat communication going, a lot of questions being answered by both Angelo and I'm having a brain fart. Both of you that are helping in chat, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. But yeah, if you guys can go ahead and stop sharing, let me take the screen back over for a moment here.